Last video in the branding module is going to be talking about your brand story. And again, this builds on the last part, right? Just like I've been saying the whole time. So now that you have a brand identity and you've been thinking about this, it's time to create a story around that, because your story is really what's going to sell, and it's really what's going to help you create your marketing campaigns and your angles and drive the entire direction of what you're doing. All right. So your brand identity is the personality that's going to help you craft your brand story. And I want to give you some practical elements here and some examples of you creating a brand story from what you're doing. Here it is in kind of a mind map. Well, not really a mind map, but a list out format of the steps of creating a brand story. And we've already gone over some of this, right? Niche research, we talked about that. So once you know where you're selling, you want to understand your ideal customer inside and out, okay? You want to find an angle that you can connect to your audience with, because, for example, I know I've been using this example quite a lot, but it's easy, I think, to stick to just a few examples all the way through. So if you look at Boom by Cindy Joseph, okay? They have a brand story based on understanding their audience, their ideal customers, women 45 years and older, that care about their beauty and want to, even though they are 45 and up, they still want to be able to have a makeup brand that they feel like is made for them, when most makeup brands are mostly targeting women that were younger, and most makeup brands are, focused on using models that are young age, okay? And so then here comes Boom by Cindy Joseph with this story and this idea and this makeup brand that is using models of women that are 45 years and older, and the whole story is built around Cindy Joseph, who is a model or was a model, and as she aged and developed this brand and this idea, they created a story around it, and then started, using that story to create their angle and making videos that explain the concept and how, why they wanted to connect with customers, right? Being specific. Okay, so once you understand your audience, you want to use their language. You want to use their language because you're not going to relate to them if you're not using their language, okay? Back to this example of the brand AF, right? American as whatever. So this is it's funny because you want to say it, but anyway, right, using the language, they're going to have a very bold, very aggressive type of language. You can hear it just in the name of the brand, right? When you actually go to their website and look at it, it's very clear the language that they're using. That's a polarizing language, right? But that's an okay thing. You don't have to be you don't have to try to appeal to everybody. In fact, trying to appeal to everybody rarely works, because you want to polarize, because then the people that you are trying to reach, the people that are in your audience, are going to be that much more connected to you, because you're not trying to please everybody. You're talking their language. All right. And you can do this just by going online and going to forums, going to places like Reddit and looking in your niche, joining the Facebook groups, seeing how these people talk and interact that are in your niche, so that you can convey that same type of language in the message that you're trying to get across to them. Creating emotion in your marketing. All right. There's a very old principle that goes all the way back to the dawn of whenever somebody sold something to somebody. All right. People buy on emotion. They justify with logic. Okay. You want to understand this in your marketing, right? You need to appeal to people on two different levels with great marketing campaigns. One, they have to connect with it emotionally, right? And then two, they have to be able to justify the purchase with logic. When you can satisfy both of those demands, right? Because here's the thing. Here's why they have to also be able to justify with logic. Because if you just sell to somebody based on emotion, like, say, for example, you think of car salesmen, okay? And not to rag against car salesmen. The industry's come a long way, but I've worked in the car sales industry years ago before I got started in this, and it's something called buyer's remorse. right? Where a salesman might be really good while they have somebody of playing to their emotional triggers, right? Of playing to that trigger of wanting to get them in a car and making them come through with a purchase. But if they didn't do a good enough job of also justifying the logic of the purchase, then that person is going to have buyer's remorse, and they're going to end up bringing the car back, a few days later, because they have time to back out of the contract, right? Or within an e-commerce store, generally there's a 30-day refund period, right? On just about any store you're ever going to see, there's at least a 30-day refund period. So if you're not if you're not justifying the purchase on logic as well, then you have a higher chance of getting that item returned. Okay. And then marketing is about the outcome. So when you're marketing to somebody, it's about the outcome. Somebody doesn't buy an expensive sports car just based on the performance, right? Some people might, some people might generally be like super car buffs, but for the most part, most people are going to buy that type of car because they like the idea of how they feel when they drive it. So, when you're selling to a person, you're selling to them based on getting them in the emotional state of how they're going to feel. What does the outcome look like in their mind of sitting in that car and, driving this expensive car, and people are looking at them as they pull up somewhere and they get out and they park, right? Now, of course, again, the logic still has to justify it. It has to be a great machine with great performance and all the great specs that you would want from something like a major investment in a car. But, for the most part, the people are buying it based on the outcome of how they're going to feel, right? Even as something as simple as a t-shirt, okay? A t-shirt is not something that needs much logic to justify, but when you are selling to, say, people in the pet niche, and you want to, you want to sell somebody shirts based on, I love my dog, right? And so you come up with this clever shirt design that's all about cute dogs or something. The outcome is still, no matter what, is that person has to look at that shirt and be able to imagine how they would feel wearing it. Now, all of this happens on the subconscious level, right? It doesn't happen like they're actually sitting there saying, how would I feel about this? Okay. In their mind, that's what they're thinking about. And so you need to be able to capture that in your imagery, in your product descriptions, in the way that you're telling the story of the product and the brand. Have a vision large enough to fit your audience. This is a little bit of an abstract concept, but basically this comes down to your business why and your proof and testimonials, all right? You want your audience to feel like they are part of what you're doing, okay? You don't just want your business to be about you making money. If your business is just about you making money, that's going to come through in the presentation, right? So having a vision large enough to fit your audience means that you have like a story that your audience can relate to. They can feel like they're part of it. You have proof and testimonials from customers and people that you delivered value to and genuinely they were happy about. Use powerful, compelling language and make sure there's a personality. We talked about these 2 points already. So let's look at an example. Here's one called Tom's. I'm not sure if their homepage still looks like this now from when I took it, but Tom's is a company where you can get right off the front exactly what they're about. Okay, improving lives. With every product you purchase, Tom's will help a person in need, 1 for 1. Okay, and they sell shoes. But it's a the story here is so good, right? And it's so apparent. Even if you don't know what they sell, you know what they're about right from the start, right from looking at this. They come story first, right? You don't see on their homepage a picture of their product. You see a picture of somebody that they've helped. And the big words, improving lives, that's their business mission. That's their vision and their story that they're creating right from the beginning. They're making the audience feel part of it, right? That's their marketing message. That's their angle. North Face. Here's an example from North Face. Again, I don't know if it still looks like this, but this is their about page, okay, and it tells their story. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can pause and read if you want. But basically, the North Face name comes from the idea of the coldest, most unforgiving side of a mountain, right? And that's where North Face, that's where they got their name from. And they talk about how, two hiking enthusiasts followed their passion into the mountains, and then it became a retailer known for high performance climbing and backpacking equipment. And then eventually they moved into like outdoor athletes and sponsoring expeditions, and came up with the idea never stop exploring, right? And eventually grew and grew and started to include lots of other types of items and things. So they're telling a story of exploration, right? They're telling a story of two guys that had a dream and had a passion, and they were following it. They were chasing an adventure. They were exploring and following this amazing, wonderful adventure that they had. And that's what their brand became. It became to represent that. And there were a lot of people that can relate to that, right? You can fit inside that story. If you're somebody who also is an adventurer who likes to, and I mean, I am. I'm not like an extreme sport, but like you can feel that adventure within what they do, and you can relate to that story of the never stop exploring. Okay, and so it's a really good story and a good example of creating a brand around a story. And then here, getting specifically into like talking about Shopify stores, this is Boom by Cindy Joseph, like we talked about. Right from the very beginning, you can see what they're about. Introducing the first pro-age cosmetic line for women of every generation. And it talks about who they are, and you get that story. You see the imagery, you see the tagline, you see what they're all about right from the beginning. They're telling a story here. And then here's something very simple, right? I've talked about sugar and cotton as well. That's like, a little bit more. They do very well, right? Like they've created a very successful store. So I don't want to see this in a critical way, but like they're much more subdued, right? Maybe bland isn't the right word. They're much more subdued, where there's so much white space, very, small fonts, not a lot of imagery, not a lot of colors, and like bright, in-your-face personality, but they've still created a story here, okay? If you go through their about page and you actually look, cute clothing and jewelry for book lovers, all right? So they're distinguishing themselves there because that's kind of a unique thing, right? Every month, Sugar and Cotton curates 100 amazing fandom-related items and accessories. We founded Sugar and Cotton with one simple goal: to provide amazing jewelry at amazing prices. And then they go on to talk about how they were tired of the boring stuff out there and they wanted to do something different and get people excited about shopping. And then it even goes on to talk about a great cause that they support if you were to be able to scroll down the page. So they're still creating a story, right? Now, is it as like unique a story filled with as much personality as some of these other ones that we looked at? No, but the point is here that your story can be as complex or as simple as you want, but your brand should have a story, all right? It's going to be more successful that way. People don't generally buy from just random companies anymore, okay? That may have worked and used to work, but it's, people are onto this idea of online stores popping up all over the place and just trying to sell random items. So the way that you're going to differentiate yourself and really start to connect with an audience and build something that is a longer term asset, right? To me, that's what a brand is, right? It's a longer term asset. So you want to have some type of story to be able to do that. Now, thinking about your brand story map. Sorry for the misspelling here, but you get it. Your brand story map, okay? Your customer is going to be the hero of your brand, all right? So you want it to be, you want to tell a story based on your customer, okay? And if you look back at every one of these stories we look at, they did. This is for book lovers, okay? Provide amazing jewelry at amazing prices. Tired of boring gifts. Wanted to get you excited about shopping again, right? It's about the customer. Introducing first pro-age cosmetic line for women of every generation. It's about women. It's about beauty. It's about time, right? It's about the customer, okay? And so no matter what, when you're creating a story, you want it to be about the customer that you're trying to serve. So think about, what do your customers want? When you take that, that's going to take you into their philosophical problems, the things that they think about, right? And then how do you position that brand to be a guide? Okay, Jay Abraham has a great concept when it comes to this. He talks about a strategy of preeminence, which basically means, like, if you can position yourself to be like the guide or the advisor in your marketplace to the customer, then you're going to be able to create a lot of loyalty there. Okay, so if we take as an example, North Face, right? What do our customers want? Okay, well, they're serving people that like to explore and are, sports people, outdoors people, athletic people. Okay, so what they want is adventure, right? What are our customers' internal, external, philosophical problems? It can be any one of those, right? Well, the external problems with being an adventurer are that you need the right, correct kind of gear to be able to go on those adventures. How have we positioned our brand as the guide to the hero, right? So how do you do that? Well, they do that by talking about how they were adventurers and they started creating high-end stuff to support their adventures in the types of things that they were doing. Have we created a clear plan for the customer to win the day? Yes, because you can get our items, right? Here's the plan. Here's the type of items that we offer to support your adventures, just like what we did, and are now creating a brand to give back to everybody else and supply these same type of items to people so that you can go on your adventures and never stop exploring. And then your call to action. Okay, so call to action is like how you're getting them to buy. Where are you making it very clear that you are selling something? And then what does that result in? How have you improved their lives, or what type of consequences are you helping them avoid? So either one, your product should solve one or the other, right? And we talked about that already in your value proposition, but basically, how they're improving their lives in this example is they're giving them better gear that they can be more comfortable in, that they can connect with more to have those adventures. All right, so that's just kind of a brief example. I didn't create this story map. Okay, this is something that I'm sharing with you from somewhere else. So again, I think I've given you a lot here to be able to understand exactly how you create a brand story from the brand identity that you should have already gone through that process with me. So we looked at Boom by Cindy Joseph. I'm not going to go over that again. We already really talked about how that worked, okay? And then passing the bounce test. All right, this has to do with your story because you want to be able to answer all three of these things to make sure your brand is compelling, okay? So from the story, all right? From basically, somebody needs to be able to see the story and understand these three questions. What do you offer? How will it make my life better? And what do I need to do to buy it? Okay, and this bounce test is basically if somebody can't look at your brand and within a few seconds understand these things by going to your store, then you have not done a good job at articulating what your brand is. They need to be able to go to your store. So like if you come here, we can see what they offer. They offer cosmetics, okay? How will it make my life better? Well, if I'm a woman that's ages 45 and up, it's going to make my life better because I can see that they are designing stuff specifically for me, okay? And what do I need to do to buy it? Well, clearly they have buttons all over here, like store, join the Boom Club, and I'm sure if I scroll down, you would see that their items are right there. So within a few seconds, you can see exactly what this brand is all about. What do you offer? How will it make my life better? What do I need to do to buy it? I hope that you got some really good information here about how you set up a brand story. And at this point now, I feel like, there's a lot to a brand. There's trial and error, and there are so many good resources out there that you can read on branding. I think Jay Abraham is one of the best and also just studying really good brands to look at what they've done, how they've created stories, how they've created marketing. And this is the foundational point, right? When you create your brand identity and your value proposition and then start to formulate your brand story, all of this is going to translate into the next parts where we start to create your Shopify store, right? Where we start to actually take your store and turn all of these parts into tangible, visible things that people are going to connect with. All right. And that's why you have to do all of this first, because if you're just trying to randomly create a store, again, you can do that, but is it going to be a sustainable, meaningful brand? Probably not, right? And unless you're going through this process to really think and do the research and do the homework that you need to do to then start building everything. Like I said, we went through all of this and spent weeks, not I shouldn't say weeks, but definitely we spent a lot of time going through the process of evaluating and thinking about and analyzing and researching and writing and then reiterating before we started to get to the point of design. And then the design process was also a whole series of starting the design and then evaluating and reiterating and working on different parts of the copy and the colors and the layout and the logos and everything, and then finally getting the move into the content. So like it's a process, a series of steps that you have to go through to build what I think would be an amazing brand. All right, thanks for watching. In this video, in the next video is where we're going to take all this now and start practically applying it to building a Shopify store from scratch. See you there.